All right, welcome. For any of us in the hospitality world, vodka is a constant. But it's also, weirdly, the most misunderstood spirit on the back bar. So in this explainer, we're going to move past all those common misconceptions and give you the real, foundational knowledge you need to truly master the spirit.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start by really defining what neutral means for vodka. Then we'll get into the raw materials, where the character begins. We'll walk through the production process, bust some of the biggest myths out there, and then we'll finish up with how you can actually apply all of this behind your bar.
Okay, let's dive right in. To really get a handle on vodka, we have to start with what it actually is, both by the book and in practice.
So this is the official definition. It's a spirit made from agricultural stuff like grains or potatoes, distilled to a really high proof, which gives it a neutral character. But you know what? It's that one word, neutral, that's at the heart of almost every single misunderstanding about vodka.
And this is probably the most crucial takeaway of the whole session. Neutrality, when we're talking about vodka, means the absence of dominant flavors from the original ingredient. It absolutely positively does not mean there's no character, no texture, no mouthfeel, no subtle aromas. That distinction is everything.
So where does that character come from then? Well, it doesn't just magically appear in the still. It begins way before that, out in the field. The choice of what to make the vodka from, that base ingredient, is the very first and maybe the most fundamental decision that shapes the final spirit.
Now, while you can technically make vodka from just about anything with fermentable sugar, beets, grapes, apples, you name it, the vast majority that you'll work with is made from either grains or potatoes. And the differences between them, well, they aren't just fun facts. They have a direct, tangible impact on the liquid in the glass.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because you can see just how different they are. Vodkas made from potatoes tend to be creamier, a bit oilier, more viscous. They have a richer, fuller mouthfeel. Grain vodkas, on the other hand, are usually lighter, cleaner. And even within the grain family, a wheat vodka can have this soft sweetness, while a rye vodka often brings some awesome peppery, spicy notes. These aren't things you imagine. They're real qualities that totally affect a cocktail's balance.
Of course, those raw materials are just the starting point. The production process itself is where the real art and science of making vodka come into play, refining all that potential into a finished spirit.
It really boils down to 4 fundamental stages. First is fermentation, where yeast does its thing and turns sugars into alcohol. Then comes distillation, which purifies and concentrates that alcohol. Third is filtration, often using charcoal, which cleans up any leftover impurities or harsh flavors. And finally, dilution, adding pure water to bring it down to bottling proof. Every single choice the distiller makes along the way makes a difference.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. The skill of the distiller, how they handle fermentation, how they run the stills, the type of filtration they use, that craftsmanship is just as critical as whether they started with potatoes or rye. That's what separates a decent spirit from a great one.
Okay, so now that we have that foundation in place, we can finally, and with confidence, start to tackle those big myths about vodka that we hear all the time from both guests and other industry pros.
This is it, the big one. This is, without a doubt, the single biggest misconception about the entire category. And honestly, it's a myth that devalues the spirit and limits what we can do with it as professionals.
But the reality, as we've already seen, is that the raw materials and the production choices create very distinct textures and subtle profiles. A professional palate can pick up on these things, and you should, because they directly impact how that vodka is going to behave in a cocktail.
Here's another one you see a lot, and it's mostly driven by marketing. The idea that more processing, more distillations, more filtrations automatically means it's a better, pure vodka. But that's a huge oversimplification.
In fact, sometimes the opposite is true. The goal of distillation and filtration isn't just to strip things out, it's to find a perfect balance. If you're too aggressive, you can strip out all the good stuff too, leaving you with a spirit that's clean, sure, but also totally flat, thin, and boring. It's devoid of the very character that makes it special. I'm absolutely certain that many of you have experienced this firsthand behind the bar. You've noticed that one vodka just makes a better martini, while another one kind of gets lost in the mix. That's not just branding, that's its production showing through. I'd actually be really interested to hear about your own experiences with this, so drop a note in the comments.
So let's bring all this together. Let's connect this technical stuff to what you do every single day. How does knowing the difference between a potato vodka and a rye vodka actually help you build a better drink?
Well, this chart is a fantastic guide.
For a spirit-forward cocktail, like a martini, that richer, viscous potato-based vodka is perfect. Its body can actually stand up to the vermouth. For a simple highball, like a vodka soda, you want a clean, crisp, wheat or corn-based vodka that provides the alcoholic backbone without getting in the way. And for a Bloody Mary, using a rye-based vodka with those natural peppery notes is a total game changer.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. Mastering vodka isn't about memorizing a bunch of brand names. It's about understanding how it's made, what that does to its texture and profile, and then choosing the right tool for the right cocktail.
You know, we've only really scratched the surface today. In our next explainer, we're going to dive even deeper into vodka's texture and mouthfeel and really unpack why that concept of neutrality is so misunderstood behind the bar. It's a huge topic, and understanding it will give you a true professional edge. Thanks so much for watching.